Hello friends, hope you're all well. Welcome to a bit of a different video for me. Today, we're gonna do a little deep dive into my live rig. A rig rundown, per se. This video is way overdue. I've wanted to do one of these things for years, but I never have just because, a rig, just like life, I guess, is ever evolving. I'm constantly changing out pedals, wiring stuff is changing. I'm always trying out new things. So I always thought in my head that once I get that new upgrade, once I figure out how that works, I will finally do this video. But I've just come to accept that that's a never-ending beast. So I finally was just like, you know what? Screw it. I'm gonna do it. The main reason I decided to just up and do this is because the next purchase I have made, and or upgrade, however you want to look at it, will basically require me to wipe this whole rig and kind of start over and build it again from the ground up. So I thought, if anything, if only for myself, just to kind of have something that documents this rig that I've built over the years that I'm fairly proud of, I thought I'd finally just do this before I kind of wipe it and start over. So we're just gonna kind of roll with it and see what happens, and hopefully you get something out of it. Welcome to my pedal board. This is what I use on pretty much a daily basis as well as a weekly basis in front of people at gigs. This thing is a workhorse, and it has been through many different just configurations, but this is kind of where it has landed. I'm not claiming in any way that this is the way it should be. This is the end all be all. This is just what works for me, and it accomplishes things that I find important. So let's dive in and get a closer look. So we'll just start with the signal chain. Again, I'm not going to claim to be a master of this is the order your pedals should go. Again, this is just what works for me. So I'll talk you through it and then kind of tell you my reasonings behind it. So first of all, we just have your standard 1/4-inch cable going into a compressor, which then hits this octave pedal, which then I believe shoots over to the overdrive. Yes, the overdrive. I'm also trying to remember this, which then shoots back over to the reverb, which then goes into this radial, which is just a fancy DI. It has the EQ and some other features that I'll explain here in a minute. And then the tuner just is in the tuner out. There's a tuner out on the DI, and that comes out of there. So it's always on, which is nice. And then the signal comes out of that and goes into the looper pedal. And then the looper pedal, this is where something is a little interesting. The signal that comes out of looper pedal actually goes in to this digital delay. And then, that hits some DIs that are kind of put underneath the board. And then that comes over here to my mixer. And if you notice, there are multiple channels. I'm not just running my guitar through a looper pedal. There's a lot of things happening. So let's dig into kind of what's happening. So like I said, it hits the compressor first. I just kind of did something standard. A compressor just kind of squishes the sound, kind of helps it stay even. So I kind of use this as both a compressor, but also I kind of use it to boost my volume a little bit, because there's a lot of things the signal has to go through. So I just kind of give it a little boost with the compressor. Whether that's right or wrong, I have no idea. And then we go into the Boss OC3. This is an awesome pedal. I love this thing, and it essentially just makes my guitar sound like a bass. I just have it on a function to where it literally just makes all the strings sound like a bass, because I'm never really trying to accompany myself. So I just use it in a way that just makes my guitar sound like a bass, and I'll usually lay down a bass loop. And then from there, we jump over to this overdrive. This was honestly just an overdrive I had laying around. I would not say that it's the end-all be-all overdrives for acoustic guitar, because for one, who is overdriving an acoustic guitar to begin with? But I like it just to kind of add some sparkle whenever I want some separation with loops. So I'll use this just to kind of create some more shimmery lead lines to kind of put on top of loops, just to kind of combat the low end. So you'll have a drum loop, a bass loop, and then a nice little, lead line loop, and it just kind of creates a nice separation. And then of course you gotta have your reverb, because that's just a staple. I just kind of use it as a basic reverb every now and again for certain songs. If I want a loop that's super washed out, I'll just bend down and crank up the level to make it super washy. But it just is kind of an always on pedal, except for whenever I'm recording drums. And then here's where some things get interesting. We go into this thing. So this is just a fancy DI. That's all this is a fancy DI. But the reason I use the radial tone bone, is for a couple different reasons. For one, it has a mute. I like that it has a mute. And it also has a boost, which is cool too for like whenever I take solos. I can kick that on, give me a little boost, which is nice. But then one of the main things that I got this pedal for was the fact that it has 2 outs that you can use at the same time. So one thing that's important for me in my years of looping that I have found, because I've used multiple different loop pedals, I have found that especially when I'm playing venues where there is a front of house engineer, somebody else who's mixing me, I have found that being able to give them more control over all the sounds that are happening just overall makes for a better mix. So what this allows me to do is it allows me to send, where it says acoustic there, it allows me to send an acoustic signal, just a clean acoustic signal, to the board. It's channel 2, the white cable. And yeah, and it just allows me to mix it like an acoustic guitar and just make sure that it's always sitting in the mix well, which I really like, and it kind of keeps it separated from all the other craziness that is happening. So I have that sending an acoustic line straight to the board, and then I have it sending a signal to the loop pedal. The reason I have it at the end of all these other effects pedals is because when I engage these effects, I want to hear what the acoustic sounds like. And another little feature, hopefully I don't get too confusing here, but a thing that I have done is inside this looper, it does not let any signal out, if that makes any sense at all. Basically, when my acoustic signal goes into the looper, it's not leaving the looper until it has been recorded. I have found a feature to where I can mute the overall output signal until it's been recorded. So the only acoustic line you're getting is through this DI. So if I'm engaging the bass pedal or whatnot, I need to make sure that that's coming out somewhere because I won't hear it otherwise. Like, yeah, my acoustic would just sound like an acoustic if I had the bass octave pedal coming after this. So yeah, I kind of put that where I put it just so I can hear all the effects being put on the acoustic because I have everything muted coming out of the looper until it's been looped. So yes, so moving from that, here's again where things start getting interesting. So we have this acoustic guitar line that's going to the board, and then we have the line that's going straight into the looper. And I guess just, yeah, I also have that tuner, which is just an always on tuner. It just comes out of the tuner out, so nothing too special. But yeah, the output of this goes into the looper. And then, yeah, I guess just to explain this, I mean, I'm using the EQ very little. I'm mainly using, it is kind of like a notch type thing. In my acoustic, there are some tones that sometimes, there's some resonant frequencies that get a little annoying sometimes. So I've just kind of pinpointed those and kind of notched them out a little bit. And then, yeah, so very subtle EQ. But then, yeah, that feeds into the looper pedal, which is where a lot of magic happens. So we have made it to the loop pedal. We have all of our processing done and everything has hit the loop pedal. Now, the way I have this set up is kind of crazy. This has come from a lot of experience, trial and error, and just figuring out what works. But essentially, for what works for me, I have designated each track to be used for something different per se. So track 3 typically tends to be always drums, like pretty much always drums. Track 1 and 2, I will use those for a variety of different things, and I'll explain that in a minute. What you can do with this looper is pretty cool, is it has multiple outs. And what you can do is you can send various things. You can choose what track goes to what out. So essentially what I have done is there's something on the back of this looper called a sub out. And I've essentially chosen to send the drums out the sub out. And then these other 2 tracks are just going out of the regular outs. Depending on what bank I'm on, I do have different configurations just for certain things. And then, yeah, and then the reason for the spike tape is there was one time I played a show and it was really dark on stage. And I realized it's really hard to see black pedals when it's black. So, yeah, when it's pitch black dark, it's hard to see pedals. So I got some spike tape and just threw it on there to help myself because it was a bit nerve-wracking. And then over here, this is what typically is like the effects. I don't know, it's supposed to be like an effects thing, I think. I'm not really sure what it is, and it's been so long. But if you notice, what I have written on there is mic mute. So what I have designated this thing to do is if you look right there, there's a mic input. I've actually designated this to be the mic mute switch, essentially. So my mic signal comes in, and like I said, I have the overall output signal muted until something has been looped and played back. So whenever I decide to loop a microphone, I can engage this so you can hear what I'm starting to record, and then, you know, I record it and starts playing back, and then I can mute that mic again so nothing comes through and I don't get any, you know, random noises and stuff like that. So that's kind of how I have rigged that up for myself. And yeah, and that's pretty much the loop pedal. And then as far as how it goes out, if you look over here, so if you look over here, you see where it says loop and drum. So essentially, I have two little DIs. They're like the radial little tiny DIs. I essentially have two DIs down there that I send the two different signals from my looper to, and one of them is just called loop, one of them is called drums. And what this allows me to do is, again, just gives me more control and gives front of house more control. So that comes over here to the board, and then essentially channel 2, like I said earlier, is the acoustic guitar. Channel 3, the red one, is my loop signal. Just anything I loop goes there, whether it's bass, vocals, or other guitar stuff. And then channel 4, the yellow one, is drums. And the reason I like having the separation with drums is it just allows me to, you know, kind of make it boom a little bit, you know? An acoustic guitar can only create so much thud, so I like that I can create some more thud, and also just, I don't know, if the drums are too much or if the drums are not enough, I always have a little bit of control just to kind of crank those and make them sound a little more like drums. So I really like just having that control. And then the red one just goes to my normal vocal mic. Like, that's not going into the loop at all. And we'll get to that here in a second. And then, yeah, that's pretty much how the pedal board works. So essentially the board itself has 3 outs: an acoustic line, anything that's looped, and then all the looped drums. So hopefully that all makes sense so far. Now, I know I haven't said anything, but then we got the digital delay here, because if you remember, that is actually patched in after the loop pedal. Basically meaning that engaging this before I do anything isn't doing anything. But what this can allow me to do is it can allow me to create some just chaos. So essentially anything that I'm looping within the loop pedal, and I'm playing back, I can essentially turn this pedal on and just mess with knobs and make I don't know, I can just make things chaotic. This has kind of been a trial thing, and since this is a stereo effect pedal, I was able to send both the drums and the loop stuff to it. So if I wanted to, I could, like, you know, make it just sound chaotic and then, you know, turn it all off and then everything goes back to clean. I don't know why I decided to do that. I just thought it could be fun because when I got this pedal, I thought I would use it more than I ended up using it. So I decided to try a different configuration, and it's just kind of stuck. I haven't used it a ton, but it's kind of a fun thing to play with whenever you're bored and, you know, I don't know, you just want to create chaos. You know, sometimes you just want to create chaos with all the sounds you're working with. And then, yeah, and then that just, since that's stereo, those 2 lines that come out the outputs go over to those 2 DIs. And then again, we go back to the board. So again, overall, I have 3 channels coming out of my looper, and some people would argue that's overkill. I have just found this is what works for me. So I've been happy with this setup, and it's done wonders in various situations. So that's the pedal board. So if we want to back out a little bit, there was some other things I thought I would go through a little bit. So again, like I said, we have the mic line. Now this, I do have a second mic from my normal singing mic. So this goes to an auxiliary mic that actually comes over here to this, which is actually my pedal board case. I kind of made it like this kind of, I don't know, side stand thing, if you will. And then this is essentially a mic, like a little condenser mic case that I made work for this little mixer. So that XLR that comes out of the looper actually goes into this tiny mixer, which allows me to do a lot of fun things. And then I have this little auxiliary mic, which at one point I used for beatboxing. I kind of don't beatbox much anymore. I've just gone back to hitting my guitar. I don't know. I just kind of like the sound of that better. I don't feel like I'm the best beatboxer in the world. And yeah, so at one point I had this mic kind of split off into both these channels, but now I just have it going into one, partially because the little Y cable broke. So I just started doing this, and it was just kind of like, whatever. But what this allows me to do is a common thing I've run into is whenever I just send the mic directly into the looper and I'm layering vocals, it can just get kind of muddy. It's hard to, like, have the voice have clarity when there's no EQ, especially when you're doing like low harmonies and high harmonies. So just having it go into this mixer first is really nice because I can just kind of give it a little more clarity. Also put some effects on it to reverb it out, make it sound like actual background vocals as opposed to just like a hodgepodge of voices, you know? So I send that in there, which is nice. And then I also just have space. I have sent other things in. So that's kind of cool too. It gives me the flexibility to plug other things into it. And then, yeah, it just comes out of that XLR and goes back into this loop pedal where we have all kinds of fun. And then, yeah, like I said, this is just my pedal board case. That just kind of stands beside me. Branding is always good, so my name is like on everything because Kaminsky is a hard name to spell. So at gigs, you know, I just try to make it easy for people to know who I am. So yeah, that's pretty much the brains of the whole like one-man band get up here. And then right here we do have just my regular mic. I don't honestly know what this brand is, SE, whatever, V7. I don't know. Half this stuff is just things that I've heard really good things about, so I just get it, and then I don't really, as long as it does what I need it to do, I don't really obsess too much about some of the details. But yeah, this is just normal mic. It just goes directly into the board, nothing too crazy. And then there's the beauty there, the Gibson J45 Studio. This is somewhat of this was kind of a Christmas purchase for me somewhat recently. So this has been a lot of fun to use. And yeah. Before this, I used a Taylor 215, I believe, and it worked wonders. Both of them had the same pickup in it. I'm pretty keen on my LR Bags pickups. I've just had such good experience, so you can kind of see the little volume controls there. But that's what I use for my pickups. I found that they work wonderful for the loop pedal thing that I'm doing. And then I just throw a little, if you've heard of it, a feedback buster in the sound hole, which is basically just a little like rubber puck that just kind of covers that sound hole. Because if you're not familiar with live looping, a lot of the times, like when you're creating all these sounds, sometimes your guitar can feedback or have too much resonance in it, and it can pick up that internally, which just doesn't work. So the feedback buster actually works wonders. And then the other trick for limiting just external noise getting recorded and creating a wall of just foggy, muddy mess is how you monitor yourself. For monitoring, I just use the soundboard and come out of the headphone out and just go into a little like headphone extension. And then I just use headphones or, you know, in-ears, these things. These are all Claire's. And yeah, they're just custom fit in-ears, which do wonders for live looping, I will say, just because it's really nice to be able to hear yourself. And then, no offense to playing, but when you do like the gigs that I'm playing, which are like corners of restaurants, background gigs, sometimes not having to listen to the crazy noise that's happening with people talking and yelling and getting a little too drunk. It's nice to have the sound cancellation, so I'm very grateful. So yeah, that's pretty much my rig. Again, this is what works best for me, and I'm about to just completely tear it apart and do something completely different. So that's fun. So this is kind of this is a little farewell to this rig. If you'd like to see it in action, I do have videos using it, but if there's anything else you guys would like to see in terms of my rig and whatnot, feel free to post some questions in the comments and just tell me what you thought about this in general. I hope this was helpful for any of you out there wanting to get into live looping, especially more advanced, like routing options and things you can do. And the Boss RC 300 is awesome. It's a tank. This rig has been through countless gigs, has not let me down a single time. So yeah, it's been great. Alright friends, that's my rig rundown, what I use live on a regular basis. I hope you got something out of this and that you enjoyed it. Thanks so much again for checking out this video. Please like, comment, subscribe. Let me know if there's anything else you guys want to see or any questions about this rig you have. In the meantime, I'm going to get on kind of reconfiguring this thing and basically starting again from the ground up, like I said, because I have a whole new brain. We'll leave it at there. Whole new brain that I'm looking at working with now. So I'm excited and a little anxious because I got to figure it out before the next gig. So that's going to be wonderful. Anyways, hope you have a wonderful rest of your day. Thanks again for checking out this video. I'll see you in the next one.